Hello and welcome to another Decode video lesson. Today we're going to continue our series in programming in general, those concepts that'll help you make software no matter what capacity it's in. So last time we introduced that concept that programming is simply a list of instructions. And if you take that concept at face value, sometimes it can seem like it has a few drawbacks. And you can, if you look at maybe a list of instructions, say we have a script that gets executed, a series of instructions for our computer. It does those commands one by one, one after the other, and then it stops. And then what do? You do it again maybe? And the second time you do it, it's exactly the same as the first time you did it, because you're just following the same instructions. What you end up with is something that's more akin to a movie than software. What you'd ideally want to do is be able to stop at a certain point and then wait for something to happen and then do the next step and then maybe rewind and do the next step again and then finally finish. That's possible with programming. And more possible than that is it's more powerful than this, because this is sort of still like a movie. You fast forward, rewind, pause, play, whatever. What you can do with programming is far more powerful than that. You can give instructions, an instruction with a group of instructions inside it, and say only do these things when something else happens. So you can wait for something to happen. And you need that in modern applications. If you've got an application on your phone or on a website and you're writing a post, you need to wait for a button to be clicked before that post gets sent to the network. You have to wait for keyboard keys to get pressed down if you want the words that you're typing to appear inside a text box. If you're playing a video game, you have to control a controller to make your player move, as opposed to just watching the player move as if it were a video. So that's where this concept of events comes in with programming. We have a series of instructions that we want to execute in response to some sort of action. So when an action happens, something else responds. Action happens, I click on the button, something else somewhere triggers, and some other code, some other instructions can be executed as a result of that. So you have events that get executed as a response to maybe a click, a key press, a change in the weather, all sorts of things. And this has data associated with it. So an action that occurs has some sort of input associated with it. Say I'm clicking, it's where my mouse is when I happen to click. And an event has some sort of output associated with it, which is usually what it does as a result of that. So as I click on it, there can be some sort of extra functionality. We send something to the server, a post to the server to be executed. We move our character in a video game. We jump. We move our robot to collect some coins. And this can, and as you can see, there's an interactive aspect to this now. As opposed to it being a movie, whenever I click, something happens. It's not something happens when I script it or when I give it times to do things in advance. It happens whenever I click, which is the true interactive aspect of programming and is what really makes it more powerful. You give it instructions to be carried through for later on. So with that in mind, let's write some code. So here I am in our sandbox again, and I'm gonna write out some code to make an example of this. Again, as we're covering programming concepts, I'm not going to delve too much on the syntax of what we're writing, the language that we're writing. You must know the language is JavaScript, but these concepts apply to anything. So I'm going to explain the key parts of what I've just explained in terms of the code, but not so much the syntax. You can change things around. And as we go further and further down along the line of these lessons, more of these things will start making sense. So I'm going to use concepts that we haven't explored yet, so I can more easily explain concepts that we're explaining now. So first, let's try and replicate what we had. We want to have something that has an input and then outputs in some way. So our input is going to be a button that we want to click on, just like it was in that how I demonstrated it earlier. So we're going to make a button, and just as we did in the last session, I'm going to make a new rectangle. We'll give it an x and a y starting coordinate, so that's 30 in the x, 300 in the y, and then a width and a height. So I'm going to say 330 wide and 70 high. Then I'm going to fill it with some color, red, and then I'm going to add that to our stage. Easy. And then we'll have a button down the bottom there. Currently, that button doesn't do anything. Next, I'm going to add something that the button will emit from. So we're going to sort of recreate what we had before. We're going to have a button and an emitter, a generator that will fire out bullets or spheres or whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to make a generator, and I'm going to make this a circle, and I'm going to say put it around the top of the screen, in the middle, and the x coordinate 200 is 400 divided by 2, sort of at the top of the screen, 50 in the y, and then 20 by 20. I don't think I need that second argument. And then I'm going to go fill blue generator dot add to stage. Hey presto, we've got a ball. And next step is to actually do something. So I'm going to here's where our event-based programming comes in. We're going to say when something happens to that button, execute a series of instructions. So button dot on, so that's saying when something happens. That's what on is sort of short for. Say click. So when a click happens, we want to do something. And what we're doing is we're wrapping this code in a function right here. So a function is the term for wrapping instructions up to use for later. So when I put something in a function, some code in a function, I can execute it again and again and again by calling that function. Now if I give that function to this click handler, I can execute that function when something's being clicked. So we're going to make a ball as a new circle, and we're going to put it in the same place as we put the generator. So 250, but we're going to make it smaller. And we're going to fill it with gray, and then we're going to ball.add to stage. Easy. So now when I click on this button, you'll see that there's this little gray ball there that just popped out of nowhere when I click the button. When I click it again, you can't tell that there are more being stacked on top of each other, but there are. Next, we want to get that sort of movement going on. So I can type ball.animate over 0.3 seconds. That's what the S means. And we're going to give it some coordinates to go to. X, we can say it needs to go to 200, and then, which is staying in the middle, and then its Y should be 430, which is off the screen. So we're going to animate from where it is to the bottom of the screen. Click on it, and off it goes. Down it goes. It's easy. Now we've got some sort of interactivity going on, which is really good. But what if we want some extra data associated with it? As I said, there's input data associated with events. That's what this E thing here is. We can call it whatever we want, but this, in fact, I'll call it event to make it plain and simple. This is going to contain some data. In it will contain the X and the Y coordinates of where my mouse is. So we can make instead of the ball flying off the screen, we could make it, well, it can still fly off the screen, but instead of it going in a straight line, we can make it go towards the mouse. I'm going to replace this X of 200 with event.x. So that is the X coordinate stored inside the event. Now when I click, you'll see it follows the mouse. It's responding to data that has been input to it. And that is how event-based programming works. You wrap some code in a function, you say happen, make this code happen at some point when something else happens, for example clicking, and then, well, it's interactive. It's no longer like a movie, which is really software. This is real stuff happening now, as opposed to just a square moving across the screen before we tell it to do anything. Thank you, everybody. Next time we'll be looking at variables, which is something that's also really important about programming. In the meantime, play around with this code, go to the Decode website to check it out and work with it interactively. You can edit the code right on the screen like I am at the moment. Thank you, everybody.